Good morning, everyone. Hope that your day has started out well. I'm Karen Duffy with Come to the Rainforest Foundation. We work with the indigenous in the Ecuadorian rainforest, and I'm so glad that you joined me this morning. We are going to be discussing those beautiful bowls that are on your screens, known as Chicha bowls. They are common in South America's indigenous cultures, just not in Ecuador. So if any of you have traveled and visited indigenous communities throughout South America, you probably are familiar with these bowls. They are absolutely beautiful. I think they're works of art, but I'm not an artist. I wish I could do something like this. I think they're just absolutely breathtaking. So let's get started and look at these bowls. So let me start with how they're made, and then we'll talk about what is drunk in them, what you drink in those. All right, so how are they made? The women of any of the indigenous women, just a second, I'm trying to get a picture up, are responsible for making the pottery. And usually your village or some village in your area has a potter. So in the Achuar village of Santiac that I often go to, Rosa is their potter, and she makes the bowls for them. And all the bowls are just very individual. They have different shaped bottoms. Sometimes they're fluted on the top. And so they don't all look exactly like the one in that picture. The women go down to the river and they collect clay. These are hand shaped, so they're not done like on a lathe or, on a spinning potter's wheel. They're done totally by hand. Once they are shaped the way that the woman wants it, then they are going to be painted with vegetable dyes that are gathered and concocted. And what's interesting, let me go to this other picture. What's really interesting to me is how intricate the design work is on these chicha bowls. So look at how intricate that pattern within the pottery is. You've got black stripes and you've got the red clay stripes. You've got this cream color going on. And so they use all different designs, as you can tell by this. But what's fascinating to me is how the women paint them traditionally. Now, the bowls in Ecuador that are made by the indigenous community, which is the Quechua community known as Sariaku, is the most traditionally made pottery, and they are the most famous in Ecuador for their beautiful chicha bowls. So Sariaku, the women there still paint them in the traditional manner. And how that is done is that they take 3 hairs from their head and they roll them together, and the 3 hairs make the paintbrush by which every single line, dot, dash, fill in the blank painting is done. It's done with 3 of the woman's hairs. Now, some of the indigenous have gone to, incorporating modern technology into their chicha bowls by painting them with paintbrushes, but the traditional way that the women painted them was by using just 3 hairs on their head. Okay, so what do they drink in these chicha bowls? They drink chicha. And here is an example of chicha in one of the chicha bowls. Very, very common throughout indigenous villages. How the chicha made is really up to the indigenous tribe, what is plant that they use to make it. The process is the same. So some of, like in Mexico and in Central America, they tend to use corn as the base ingredient. In Ecuador, in the indigenous villages that I work with, they tend to use manioc, which we would also know as yuca or yucca. And it is a fibrous, starchy root. And so how they get the chicha made, and for those of you who don't know anything about chicha, chicha is a fermented drink. It can become very strongly fermented the longer it sits, but if it only sits like a day, it's not as fermented. So it's, it's kind of like beer making. The longer it ferments, or wine, the stronger the fermentation is. So what is done to make these, to make the chicha, is that the women the manioc is very hard. It's a root. And so they have to boil it, chop it, and smash it to get it, mushy. And then what the women, that they put it in their mouth and they begin to chew it. And they chew and they chew and they chew. And their saliva, is building up. The manioc juices are coming out of it as they are chewing. And if you think of someone who, I hate to say it this way, but who chews snuff, they get the tobacco juices going as they're chewing snuff. And of course, what do you need to do with the tobacco juice? Once you have it in your mouth, you have to spit it. And so the women, after chewing the manioc, will spit it into a pail, a bucket, some type of container. It can be a clay pot. And they just keep doing this over and over and over again. The women sit around and do it together. And after they have all of the, chewed manioc, their saliva all spit into a pot, they let it ferment. And usually they ferment it from anywhere to 1 to 3 days. However, festival ceremonies, when they want it a little bit more fermented, it can go as long as 7 days. That tends to be where the drop-off point is. The longer it ferments, the little bit more sour it gets. And so you can kind of tell how long the fermentation process has taken by how sour the chicha is. And chicha is a drink amongst the tribes that I work with. They drink it like we drink soda. It's just, they always have a bowl of it. They're always drinking it. It is the drink preferred. They prefer it over water, and that's a hard thing to train, to help educate them that water is important for our bodies, and that chicha is not, even though it's a liquid, it doesn't replace what water does for our bodies. And so most of you are probably wondering, have I had it? I have. Do I like it? I do not. But I don't drink alcohol at all, and it's not because I have some, aversion to alcohol. It's that I just don't like the taste. All alcohol tastes like alcohol to me, and that taste that everybody loves, I just do not. So one reason I probably don't like chicha is that I don't like the fermentation taste. One of the nurses that went with me one time, she didn't necessarily love it, but she said it was fine, and she drank it every time it was offered to her. The indigenous, when you come into their village, it is part of the ceremonial welcoming to you, so you will be offered chicha. Sometimes a woman will go around and she holds the bowl and brings it to your mouth, and then you sip from it. Then she cleans off the edge with her hand and then goes to the next person. Sometimes you're offered just a whole bowl of your own, and it just really matters what that village has decided to do with their chicha. Here is a picture in one of the villages that I work in, known as Conqua. They're in a Chouar village. And this is a funny picture. It has a little bit of a story to it. They had asked me to bring them in electricity. And solar electricity is the best way, of course, in the rainforest, but it's extremely expensive. And my foundation just couldn't afford the solar panels that would be needed. So we brought in a Ford generator on a canoe, which was a story in itself. But at the end, after we electrified Conqua for the first time in their history, they had a really beautiful final ceremony, a kind of a going away thank you ceremony for us. And one of the games that was played is that all the men lined up. They were all given a large bowl. You can see how big their bowls are of chicha. And then on a signal, they all drank it as fast as they could. And whoever drank it the first, won the game. And so that's what that picture is showing, the men just having that good time. Here is the chief of Conqua. the same village with his chicha bowl. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, and that's his morning breakfast drink. Sometimes they drink it out of a gourd that has been, cleaned out and made into a bowl, but typically it's drunk from a chicha bowl. In the Achuar culture, it is the wife's duty to make sure that whenever her husband wants chicha, that she supplies it for him. And I don't see that going on with the Rorani tribe, but they have they're a little bit more egalitarian society. And so in the Achuar, which is what Venancio there pictured with me, his wife or one of his daughter-in-laws or daughters would bring him his chicha. And there is, in fact, even a song, an Achuar song that talks about a man who's looking for a wife and what he wants in a wife. And one of the things he wants is that she makes good chicha and will serve him his chicha. So if any of you, I don't know if any of you even want to, but if any of you want to make chicha, I have a spitless recipe that you can try for yourself. So it'll be up here once this video is over. You can replay it if you really want to try chicha for yourself if you've never had it. This one is made with both yuca and a sweet potato. You could substitute corn for the yuca. You can buy yuca in like Hispanic grocery stores. You'll find it there, but just remember you have to boil it and smash it before you make the yuca. Let me show you a couple of bowls that I have. Just one moment. That are from Sariacu, which is the most known village in Ecuador. It's a Quechua village, and I have all my Quechua earrings that were made for me by some Quechua women down there, so I thought I'd wear them just to keep the Quechua culture going in this video. But here is one of the small bowls that the Quechua in Sariacu have made. You can see how intricate the design work is. And then on the outside, the design is a little bit more simplistic than on the interior. But what's interesting about this bowl, you don't see it as often, is that the bowl's interior is cream colored instead of being the red clay colored. So here is the size of the bowl. This is a small bowl. This bowl that I had showed you on the last video when I said I was going to do this one is more the size that your chicha would be served to you in. And this one is a very intricate bowl. You can see all the designs that were done. And then the outside is even more intricate than the inside. And so that's all done with 3 strands of a woman's hair. Is that not gorgeous? I just simply love these bowls. They are thin pottery. They're not totally fragile, but the rims tend to chip. But and the way that I didn't finish how they were made, and I'm so sorry, I got off on the chicha. After they have painted them, they are then put into like a fire pit, not a kiln. It's an open, just they're sat down in it. And I don't know, I had a lady that made a pot in front of me, and I would say maybe 10 minutes, the pot. I was surprised how fast it was fired. So, it's not a long process. Probably the longest process is going and getting the clay and then, forming the bowl. And of course, the painting of it is very, meticulous. So I hope that you've enjoyed this short little video on chicha bowls. I do have them for sale, and they are Sariacu pottery. I bought them from one of the ladies from Sariacu. They are in my Etsy store. It's down there on the ticker tape. My Etsy store is known as Rainforest Artisans. Just to let you know, it's fair trade. All profit goes back to help the tribes. I allow them to set the price that I buy it from them. And so it's one way that our foundation can raise some money. And it also helps the women of Sariacu to have a little bit of an outside economy. And so if you're interested in just having a Chicha bowl, I use mine to throw my change in and my car keys. I've even fed my cats out of a couple of them. So you can, use them for all different purposes. Some are so beautiful that just displaying them alone, it's a great conversation starter. And you can explain how chicha's made. It's women, chewing the manioc and then spitting it and allowing it to ferment. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.